Joining us now, Audacy NFL insider Brian Baldinger, host of the Best Football Show podcast, which you can check out on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcast. Baldy, thank you for joining us.
It's good to be with you guys.
What up, Baldy?
So, post-football season, we always know you're a traveler. Been anywhere good since football season ended? Any cool vacations or sights or sounds in Baldy's world?
Yeah, of course. I've been to Costa Rica and throughout the Caribbean and into the Bahamas and, wherever the sun is shining and the water's warm, I've been there for the most part. I've been bouncing pretty good.
You live a good life, man. I love it.
Well, listen, look.
You deserve it.
Anybody can break down cover, too, but, you can't do it all day long.
Absolutely.
You gotta take a break from it. Yeah.
Yep. Well, it does take that balance. I've always been bad at that. And I get burnt out. And like you go hard when you're going hard, and then you enjoy yourself when you're enjoying yourself.
I try to balance it up a little bit.
So before we get to the draft itself, Eagles offseason has been, I think we all expected some players to leave. I don't think we expected the number of players to leave that left, and then the sort of no immediate replacements. I was curious what your reaction to the offseason so far has been for the Eagles.
Did they really lose great players? You could say Darius Slay is on the downside of his career, hasn't been signed. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has been on a one-year contract for the last 5 years for 4 different teams. There's a reason why, he gets bounced. I thought, Josh Sweat was a good player, really good player. But honestly, when he got drafted, you probably remember this, Ike. Mm-hmm. When he was drafted out of Florida State, nobody thought he'd play 6 years.
Nope.
They thought that knee was so bad it was a ticking time bomb.
Yep.
And they had to manage him, but Josh was a great player. And he really gave it everything he's got. I don't know how much more his knee can hold up. Just based on, the medicals when he came out. And Milton Williams came on, was a good player, but, they've been stocking that position pretty good. Mekhi Becton played way beyond anybody what he thought he could do. And I didn't think they would be able to keep him. So, Tyler Steen and Kenyon Green, and, they've got bodies there. They might try to upgrade it here in the draft, but I don't think it was a horrible offseason of losing that many guys, to be honest with you. 2 starting defensive linemen, but guys waiting in the wings to kind of take their place and develop.
I guess when we look at it, Baldy, and I guess when it was about 5 players they lost off the defense, you feel like there's enough still there in the cupboard, along with draft picks, obviously, whoever they take in the draft. And I think it'll be on that side of the football. You feel confident in what's left in the cupboard, but probably more so who's calling the plays, the architect of the defense, and Vic Fangio.
That's a big part. It's a big part of it, Ike. But, they're going to get Nakobe Dean back. Zach Vaughn could have easily been the defensive player of the year.
Yep.
All the stats say that he should have been the defensive player of the year. And then what he did in the postseason. The guy was – and then, they did something that they have not done since maybe Trot was there. And they went out and extended him and gave him a contract. And, he's going to be an Eagle for quite a while now. And they gave him big money, and rightfully so. So, I think that's still a position of need. I don't think there's a lot of depth there. Mm-hmm. I think safety is still a position of need. I don't think there's a lot of depth there. So, and I think this is the best draft I can remember the last 15 years for defensive linemen. So, you're going to get a chance. If you don't do anything, you just stay at 32 and take a defensive lineman, you're going to get a good player.
So, Baldy, speaking of the draft, when you're thinking about a player and a team who they're going to decide to select, how much of that is the tape? How much of that is the combine? How much of that is the other stuff, the interviews, the personal stuff? How do you weigh it?
Well, you have to weigh all of it. Now, I'll give you a quick story. I talked to a guy that played with the Eagles. It is not necessary to say his name, but he interviewed a lot of players at the combine at a particular position. And he was dumbfounded at how little some of the players knew about even drawing up a play or what their assignments were. Mm. And so you get some of these guys that just aren't that smart, can't think on their feet. Like, they don't sound like Philadelphia Eagles to me. Like, but they might test really well. They might have played really well at the Senior Bowl. When you just being at the Senior Bowl this year, I haven't been there in a while, but just being down there in the pits and watching these drills, there are so many NFL-ready, NFL bodies they just look like NFL players, and they're 20 or 21 years old. I can't, you got to, they've been developing players now. I mean, Nolan Smith really developed from a guy people said he was undersized. He ran a fast 40 time, but he really developed. And so I think, the coaching has been really good, and young players have come on. So I think you got to factor in, are they coachable? Are they smart? What's their talent level? How do they test? I think it's a little bit of all that stuff.
Yeah, I think coming out of here, Baldy, they got to feel good about their formula for selecting players, right? We were talking to Mike Mayock last week, and we were just talking about the process of putting together your draft board and the criteria you may use and what's important to you from a prioritizing sort of stand. And the Eagles seemingly have figured out the formula they feel comfortable with. In these last few drafts, I just go with since 21. When they selected Devontae in the first round, and I think they got Landon Dickerson in the second round. They really have been on a nice little streak with their first few rounds in the draft. What do you think that says about Howie and his staff and where they sort of develop from an evaluation standpoint?
Well, I think it's so I think it's more than Howie. I think Nick, I think there's just good stability within the organization. Okay. I don't think anybody feels really threatened, although I think they're very, very hungry to maintain their posture as a top elite team in this league, and they know that drafting well is probably the biggest part of that. Drafting and developing. They changed a lot of coaches last year, a lot of position coaches that made a difference. So I think they didn't get it right the year before. And they made some mistakes when Doug was here. So, I feel like they have they keep working at it and striving to be better. The one thing, just knowing guys that have worked for Howie and have gone on to other places now, Howie wears these guys out. I'm going to be here now. It's not fun over there. But to Howie's credit, like some of that stuff really pays off. Some of those, well, what if this happens in this scenario? And what if this trade, takes place? And what if this guy is available when we're at 32 and he's there at 27? Do we trade? Like all of the different draft scenarios that Howie goes through with the guys, like it does wear him out, but it does pay off. Yeah. And so, you can't outwork that guy right now, and that's a credit to him.
Yeah.
Baldy, looking at this draft, is there a position or two you think it's particularly deep in?
Yeah. I think it's deep at tight end. I think it's really deep at defensive line. I don't care if it's defensive tackle or defensive ends or edge rushers. I think it's really good. And then it's a really deep draft at running back. So I think those three positions really stand out to me.
If you're the Eagles, you're sitting there at 32. How do you balance best player on the board versus what you need for your team this year?
You can't really go wrong. If you just go with the best player, like they've got all the positions filled right now, Spike. Like they don't have a glaring need. So, some teams clearly do. If you're the New England Patriots, you got glaring needs. If you're Carolina, you got glaring needs. I don't think the Eagles have a glaring need. They have made that mistake before and tried to do that, and there's no point to go and revisiting it. Mm-hmm. But if you stay there and you take the best player available, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of trades in this draft. There's just not enough star power quarterbacks in this draft. There's not enough star power in this draft, but it's a deep draft. And so, there's probably going to be 8 to 10 defensive linemen taken in the first round. Now, if somebody drops, because who knows, character issues or off the field stuff or attitude, whatever it might be, but the talent is there. That's kind of like what happened to Jalen, and so like Carter out here. So there's a couple guys in this draft that people are a little bit queasy about, let's say, and so I don't think they have a lot of fear with Lane. With when you have Lane and you have Jalen and you have some of the Zach Bond, you have some of the leaders in that locker room. I don't think there's a lot of fear about bringing a guy in that might have had some issues before about how to conduct yourself.
Well, and any gut tell you, 32 is weird because you don't know who's going to be there, but is there a player or two you think could be sitting there that you think the Eagles would be interested in?
Yeah, like if Mike Green was somehow available from Marshall, Anywhere, like, say, after 26, because I think the Eagles would go up and get an elite player like that, an elite talent. It's a position of need. They have been weakened, especially with Bryce Huff's inability to really play within the scheme. So they've got some young guys there, Jalen Hunt and Nolan, but, position of an edge rusher like him or, a local kid, from Boston College, Izaraku, I think he could be, a guy that they would be very, very interested in. James Pierce from Tennessee, who people have some real question marks about with some issues, but the talent at 4'7" and 6'5", 250 pounds, and some good production at Tennessee. He was hanging around there. I don't think they'd wait very long to bring his name up there.
All right, Baldy, we appreciate it. Should be it's an interesting draft lead up for the Eagles after winning the Super Bowl. Normally when we don't, we all focus in on one or two guys and we make ourselves crazy thinking about whether they're going to get them. And the Eagles this year sitting where they sit with a lot of quantity for picks, but nothing real high. And as you mentioned, not a pick where you think you're going to address one specific need. It's interesting for them. We appreciate your time, man.
Yep, my pleasure, guys. You bet. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Baldy.
Yep. All right, there he is, Brian Baldinger, Audacy NFL Insider, host of the Best Football Show podcast, where you can get in the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcast.